I feel that what I create, I believe, has changed our classroom. It's made it much calmer. They are really into the breathing techniques. They love the car, and we do that one a lot. And I have 3-year-olds, and it's really calmed down. They do the breathing with them. They love it.
Using this program and having the kids work with the scribbles and the breathing, it's helped a lot of the behaviors through transitions and into the next group. It's helped with calming some of my children down. When we didn't have clipboards, I would use the magic finger with one child in particular, and it helped to bring them to a place where they could be more productive in the classroom rather than all over the place.
We use it as a behavior tool. We do have some kids that have behaviors that I've noticed it helps. Also, I have a lot of foster kids with trust issues, so it takes a lot to get them to close their eyes. But now I'm getting to where I have probably half those foster kids closing their eyes so that they can focus, and it really seems to help a little bit of trust and building that relationship.
I think it has made a difference. I've had a little girl and a little boy that got really upset. One was missing her mom, and she wanted to make a scribble picture about the doggy running around the tree. And I said, well, you know what, let's go over here and get the clipboards. And I had not put them in the classroom yet, but it was just recently, right after we had introduced it, but she loved it that much. So I offered her a clipboard in the writing area, and she just, by herself, and she was telling her own little story about the dog around the tree, and its name was Fluffy, and running, and she's going to take it home to her mom. And then I had another friend who was upset. He kept pushing people, and he just couldn't grasp himself. So I said, you know what, I want to try something with you. How about if we come over here and we'll draw? Remember the scribbles that we used to do? Why don't you come over here? And I don't want to. And he threw the crayon down, but then and I noticed after I walked away, he picked it up and he started going like this. And I just looked at it and said, well, that's what it's intended for right there. And I was like, this is going to be good. It's a good outlet other than pushing and pulling and carrying heavy things. This is another way of them getting out their frustration so they can focus.
And I have one little guy who has been diagnosed with several different things, but nobody knows what's going on. He's going 90 all the time, impulse control problems through the roof. And so he's one that I have sitting right next to me. And one day, probably the second or third time that we did it, is when we started getting under the race cars, and then we did the puppy, and he sat for about 45 to 50 minutes afterwards just coloring on his own. He focused. He didn't listen to the kids calling behind him, hey, come and play, come and do this, look at this. He focused. It was like, oh. And I talked to his family about it. One of his family members also works at Head Start, and I told them about it, and they were like, oh my gosh. So they started doing it at home, and so Mom was pretty stoked. So it's amazing.
I have one student who has a really difficult time at nap time. He does all kinds of acrobats on his cot, and he's very active. So what we did, I didn't have the clipboard, but we did do the magic finger, and we were having him draw on his leg. And it just helped him to stop and focus on something different, to calm down, and then he just kind of sat there and did that for quite a while and got through nap time. So it was beautiful.
About the second time that we introduced Create What I Believe, one of our students that has a hard time, we turned on the lights, we started, and as we're looking around, he has his head back, and he is just relaxing into it. And it was like the second time we'd ever done it. He just felt it, and it's so natural for them. They all really just jumped into it and enjoy it so much.
I would recommend this program to other teachers. Beginning of the year, it was part of a CST, and I was like, what is this? So as soon as I saw it, I had to take it. And when I was in the training, I was like, oh, I'm not quite sure about this. You know, I don't get it, because in other trainings you hear that if a child is messed in the brain by drugs or alcohol, they're done. But I do have, like I said, some foster kids, and some of them do have some issues with that, a majority of them, and it was like, wow, it did help. It's not going to change them permanently so that they're, boom, like a typical child, but it gets in the mindset where you can change them for that 15 minutes, and then maybe half an hour, and then maybe, so if you can get that 15 minutes, that you've got a basis to work with. I thought I'd throw that in because in the training I was like,
I would recommend it to other teachers only for the fact that it helps them get geared for the next step of the transition, whether it be for group activity or even if it's just kind of a crazy, rambunctious day, which we know children have those times, but it helps them regain focus to be able to regain their learning capabilities, and just a good calming mechanism, just to see the kids just relax and just to be in that zen just when they close their eyes and just breathing. It's just, and it helps you teachers also to calm down as well, because I know there has been times when the class gets kind of crazy. I need to calm myself down to be able to even perform the scribbles, and that helps me get there in my center. It helps me get to the front of my brain too.
I love it. I think it's I just love it. It's benefited us. We've grown from it, all of it, the teachers and the students. And I'm glad that I did it. And I'm going to continue to do it next year.
I absolutely would recommend this program to other teachers. It is wonderful for transition. It is wonderful for getting the children to just stop and focus and be able to come back to where you're trying to teach them. And even for, like I said, nap time, getting them to calm. And sometimes sitting still is hard for a kid. You're 3, you don't want to lay on your cot, you don't take naps, so you do an acrobats, and this gives them something else to focus on, and just brings them a calmness that they can go through the rest of their day with.